a tiny spotted bobcat kitten named Rusty, almost too big for her lap but settling in anyway, snoozing away with the dramatic abandon of a fainting Victorian lady. His head rests on her knee, his soft belly offered up for belly rubs, and his purr isn't a gentle rumble but a full-throated engine-like roar of happiness that seems to vibrate through her whole body. Outside, the wind whispers through the trees, but inside that small farmhouse there's only the soft brush of Emma's fingers and the sound of pure, unguarded contentment. For a wild creature born to the forests, this lap has become his kingdom. In this moment, he has everything he needs. But this is just the beginning of their story. What happens when the wild calls him back? Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The air on that crisp April afternoon still carried the last stubborn chill of a Michigan winter, but the sun, hanging high and brilliant in a pale blue sky, promised that spring was finally winning the argument. For 18-year-old Emma, the scent of damp earth and awakening life was the official perfume of freedom. Freedom from school, freedom from the city, and freedom to spend a week at her grandmother's farm, a place where time seemed to slow down, measured not by clocks, but by the slow crawl of shadows across the vast rolling fields. She was wandering behind the great sway-backed barn, its red paint faded to the color of a setting sun, when she heard it. It wasn't a bird's chirp or the rustle of a field mouse. It was a thin, reedy cry, almost too faint to be real, like a memory of a sound. Emma froze, her worn leather boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. She scanned the line of tangled weeds and last year's cattails that bordered the woods. Nothing. She took another step, and the sound came again. A desperate, wavering mewl that snagged at her heart, parting a curtain of overgrown thistle. She saw him. He was a miserable little ball of fur, no bigger than her two fists pressed together. His coat, beautiful pattern of tawny brown and dark inky spots, was matted with mud and burrs. He was shivering violently, a tremor that shook his entire tiny frame. His eyes, a startling blue that wouldn't have looked out of place in a summer sky, were slitted against the bright light, and they were fixed on her with a look of pure, unadulterated terror. He tried to hiss, a sound that came out as a pathetic puff of air. Emma's breath caught in her throat. This was no barn cat. The ears were too long, tipped with delicate black tufts. The paws were enormous, comically oversized for his body, and his tail was a short, expressive stub. A bobcat. A wild, honest-to-goodness bobcat. Kitten. Her first thought was of his mother. She stood motionless for a long time, listening, her senses straining for the sound of a twig snap or the low growl of a protective parent. The woods remained silent, save for the whisper of the wind through the budding oak trees. The kitten cried again, a sound of profound loneliness that decided things for her. Protocol and common sense said to leave wildlife alone. But looking at this shivering, abandoned creature, protocol felt like a cold, distant concept. This wasn't a wild animal in its element. This was a baby dying in the weeds. With movements as slow and gentle as she could manage, she knelt. "Hey, there, little guy," she whispered, her voice soft. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." He flinched as her hand drew near, but he was too weak to move away. She scooped him up, her hands easily encompassing his small body. He was shockingly light, a fragile collection of bones and fluff, tucking him inside. Her fleece-lined jacket, she felt the frantic hummingbird beat of his heart against her own ribs. He went still, whether from exhaustion or a flicker of trust, she couldn't tell, as she walked back toward the warm, welcoming light of her grandmother's kitchen. Emma had no idea that she had just appointed herself the reluctant and completely unqualified nurse to a tiny striped orphan. Her grandmother, Rose, was standing at the sink, her hands submerged in soapy water. At 75, she had a face mapped with the fine lines of a life filled with laughter and hard work, and her eyes, the same warm brown as Emma's, missed nothing. She turned as Emma entered, a question forming on her lips that died the moment she saw the look on her granddaughter's face. "Well now," Rose said, drying her hands on her apron. "What have you got there, sweetheart?" Emma gently opened her jacket. The kitten blinked, looking even smaller and more pathetic in the bright kitchen. Rose let out a low whistle. "Oh my, a bobcat. Haven't seen one of their little ones up this close in 30 years. There was no judgment in her voice, only a quiet, practical concern. Together, they fashioned a makeshift nest from a cardboard box and an old wool blanket, placing it near the gentle warmth of the wood stove. The first challenge was hydration and nourishment. Rose, who had raised everything from lambs to orphaned raccoons in her long life on the farm, knew that cow's milk would be a death sentence. "There's a feed store in town," she said, already reaching for her car keys. "They'll have kitten milk replace her. You stay here and keep him warm." While she was gone, Emma took a soft, damp cloth and began to gently clean the kitten's fur. He squirmed weakly at first, but as the warmth seeped into his chilled body and the gentle strokes soothed him, he began to relax. She worked meticulously, teasing out the burrs and wiping away the grime, revealing the stunning, intricate pattern of his coat. It was like polishing a hidden gem. By the time Rose returned with a can of KMR and a set of tiny bottles and droppers, the kitten looked less like a castaway and more like a miniature king. But getting him to eat was another battle. He turned his head away from the bottle's nipple, his wild instincts wearing with his desperate hunger. Emma's heart ached with every refusal. She remembered reading somewhere that you had to be patient to make them feel safe. She settled into the old rocking chair, the kitten cradled in a towel on her lap. Instead of forcing the bottle, she just held him, humming a tuneless song her mother used to sing to her. After a quarter of an hour, she tried again, this time with a simple eyedropper. She squeezed a single drop of the warm milk onto his lips. His little pink tongue flickered out, tasting it. He wrinkled his nose. She squeezed another drop. He licked it away more deliberately this time. And then a small miracle occurred. He began to suckle weakly at the tip of the dropper. Emma fed him drop by painstaking drop, a process that took the better part of an hour until his belly was round and full.